Hello everyone. My name is Harshita Tolia, and I am the host for today's session. A very warm welcome to everyone joining us today to another segment in our Meet the Expert series. Today, we shall have some of the faculty members of our postgraduate program in journalism talk about the courses that they will teach here at Geo Institute. Today's session will be moderated by our program mentor for journalism program, Dr. Harsh Taneja. Dr. Taneja is an associate professor in the College of Media at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Before this, he was a faculty at Missouri School of Journalism at the University of Missouri. In addition to academic experience, he has experience working in media and advertising at Publicis Media, BBC Global News, and the Indian Express newspapers. His area of research focuses on explaining audience behavior in an increasingly fragmented digital media environment and how measurement dynamics shape audiences, media, and popular culture. Before we begin the session today, I would like to point to our audience that they can add their questions in the Q&A button below, and we shall take the questions towards the end of the session. So without further ado, I would now like to welcome Dr. Taneja and request him to start the session. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Harshita. I hope I am audible and visible. So I'm, very pleased to have this opportunity to introduce the journalism program at Geo Institute and my esteemed colleagues who've all, agreed to be a part of this journey with us. So I think as Geo Institute is a very exciting concept to me, as we all know that the institute began last year with the digital media and marketing communications and an artificial intelligence and data science program. And I think journalism is a very logical extension in the journey of the institute, because not only is journalism as an institution extremely important to any society, but there are also very interesting synergies that the present state of media present us with, where journalism can draw on opportunities from both these areas. So this is pretty exciting, but I think since our colleagues are here, I think we want to sort of highlight the kind of faculty that we have recruited from all over the world to teach in this journalism program. And as they describe their backgrounds and their research interests, as well as the kind of courses that they will teach for us, I think the shape of this program will become clearer through that, rather than me giving a long list of the 10 things that we are doing in this program. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about how I know each of these people. So as Harshita said, that I used to work at the BBC before I, decided to do my PhD and become a professor. So actually, Monica, who is with us here, or Dr. Monica Chedda, who is with us here today, she and I actually go back to my BBC days. And she was a journalist for the BBC in India. I think their first digital journalist who used to cover South and West, if I remember correctly. So we were in the same office at Bombay. I was kind of on the dark side of the newsroom, because I was more dealing with, metrics and money and supporting sales and marketing, whereas she was gathering and producing and disseminating the news. But that's where I know her from. So, let's have Dr. Monica Chedda tell us a bit about her journey and what she'll teach at Geo.
That lovely introduction. Yes, I was a reporter for the BBC in India for about 8 years. That's where I met Harsh. Harsh made us look good by saying, look at how many people are looking at their news or watching it. And the rest of us were just too busy reporting on it. I worked for the Asian Age newspaper at the start of my career as an intern, and then I worked for the features pages at the Indian Express. And then I joined the BBC. I've done radio production, some television, a lot of online. And so multimedia journalism was what we were doing back in the 2000s when multimedia journalism wasn't even the way you understand it today, which is like, but that's what journalism is. At that time, it was not. And so my experience runs the gamut. I then went on to pursue a PhD at University of Texas in Austin. And following that, I joined the Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University in Phoenix, Arizona. For those of you who don't know where Arizona might be, it's actually right by California. So if you want to think Arizona, think California, and then just go a little bit to the east of California. And so what I think I'm excited to come back and teach Indian students and students at Geo, irrespective of where you're coming from. Because it's like coming home. It's like giving back to the profession that gave me so much before I joined academia. And I would love to bring my expertise as a journalism scholar, as well as a practitioner, to the students at Geo, and sort of help them learn about the fundamentals of reporting and writing, which is the course that I will be teaching.
Thank you so much, Monica. And thank you so much for, agreeing to join us in this, experiment of teaching in the first batch at Geo. So I'm very grateful to, have somebody like you who's well-versed in sort of both the practice of journalism, who was, as you said, doing a version of multimedia journalism before, most people would only guess what multimedia journalism could be. And then someone who's done a lot of research on different aspects of journalism, who studied both sort of the output of news as well as how journalists are doing journalism, having been a journalist. So I think your perspectives would be really the kind of integration of theory and practice that we are hoping that the Geo program will be, which is very unique for a journalism program in India, because most of them, although there are really very good journalism programs in India, but most of them are solely practice focused. And that is where we are trying to, make a difference. And on that, I would like to, invite Vikas to introduce himself next. So Dr. Vikas Pathak, who actually has a PhD in history, and he has been a journalism educator and a practitioner covering what we call as very hard news. Like, he's been at the forefront of, reporting Indian politics, but for the past few years, he's been more focused on journalism education. And while I moved to the US once I decided to become an academic, but I have kept some sort of a, visiting association with a couple of institutions in India. One of them happens to be the Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication, which is one of those places that as I said, runs a very nice, but a very applied journalism program. And it was during one of the visits to Symbiosis that I had first met Vikas, when he was an assistant professor there almost, I think, 8 years ago. So, over to you, Vikas, to more formally and properly introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Harsh. So, I'm Vikas Pathak, and I happened to chance upon becoming a journalist because, as Harsh said, I was a student in Delhi in Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, and I was my PhD there. I did my MA, MPhil, and PhD in modern Indian history. In fact, modern history, because we had some courses on world history also. So it is at that time that I decided to become a journalist. It was a late entry into journalism. And I happened to go to the Asian College of Journalism as a student and then became a journalist. So I worked with the Hindu, uh, Hindustan Times, and the Indian Express, all in Delhi. I've been a desk person for 1.5 years. Apart from that, I've been a reporter primarily. So I used to cover national politics. I've covered the BJP for several years for Hindustan Times. I have covered Parliament for around 10 years, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, differently at different points of time. And I've also, my last assignments were one. I was the deputy political editor of the Hindu in Delhi, and for a brief while, I also headed the political coverage of Outlook magazine. And that apart, I also had a digital stint where I was editor of a news website called Asiabil in Noida. Right now, I've been for the last 3 years been teaching at Asian College of Journalism in Chennai, ACJ. I've also taught at Symbiosis Pune. So of course, like the course that I'm first of all very excited because I believe that the institute has immense promise and can do very, very well given the kind of faculty members who have been roped in. So in my case, what I'll be teaching would be understanding India, which is, I think, a very important part of becoming a journalist if you're working in India. And even if you are going to work elsewhere, not a bad idea to know more about South Asia, which is a very important region. So the thing here is that, journalism is a combination of a set of skills and, knowledge. Knowledge in the sense that what you're doing as a journalist actually relates to some subject somewhere. So you might be covering the Home Ministry, but the Home Ministry has all the what you call CAPFs, armed, police forces of the union under it. You might be covering Finance Ministry, but then the budget comes and you have to cover the budget. You might be doing External Affairs Ministry. So these are all subjects. But what journalism is doing, what is specific to journalism is that all these subjects can be studied in a university. You can do a PhD on them. But what a journalist is doing is to map what happens next, the here and now. But the here and now is not an isolated incident. It's part of a process, which is why when you structurally try to understand processes, the way society has kind of evolved over the last, say, 50 years, 10 years, 100 years, then the ability to write stories on that or to present stories on that, as a multimedia journalist or as a print journalist or as a broadcast journalist or doing podcasts, whatever, is higher because, as I said, there's a format of journalism, the way you tell a story, but the story is not fiction. It pertains to something that is around you and something around you that has a history. So, in my case, I was trained to be a historian of modern India. I also wrote an academic book, Contesting Nationalisms. My specialization was Indian nationalism. But then later, as I covered Indian politics, the advantage was that I also looked at government very, very closely at the highest levels, and also looked at the functioning of parliament for years very, very closely. So what I studied as a modern history student, added to that came this new aspect, which was like understanding the Indian government, understanding the Indian state, understanding institutions on a first-hand basis, on a daily basis. I've also covered not less than 10 to 12 elections in India from 2009 onwards. So, all those field experiences, have kind of, offered a sense of continuity to someone who was trained to be a modern historian to also become some kind of, some kind of a political observer of the present or an observer of society. So I will try to, somehow condense all of that into a course so that the students, as they pass out, also pass out as people who are very well informed and are in a position to tell meaningful stories. And of course, as Dr. Monica said before, you'll be learning here to report, to write, to do whatever broadcast, podcast, everything will be there. So there'll be skills and then there'll be knowledge, and we'll try to make it as cutting edge as possible. So thank you, Harsh.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Vikas. So we'll now introduce.
You're muted.
Am I still muted? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So now we'll.
You have to unmute.
I am audible now. I think Vikas.
Yeah, Harsh, you are audible. I think
Okay.
Vikas, there is probably some connection
Okay.
issue.
Yeah. So I think we'll turn to our third guest here. So as you know, I finished my PhD and I took my first faculty position at the University of Missouri, which by most accounts is the world's first journalism school. And because it's the world's first journalism school, it's also a really, really massive journalism school. And it has further specializations that it offers in many different areas of journalism. So TJ, or Dr. TJ Thompson, who's here with us, was actually a master's student there, specializing in photojournalism, and then he went on to also stay with us for the doctoral degree. And that's how I met TJ, and I know TJ that he was one of our doctoral students who was specializing in photojournalism and visual journalism or visual communication for his doctoral work. And then he went to Australia at the Queensland University of Technology, which again is like, I think, one of Asia Pacific's best schools in the area of media and communication. So there he is a senior lecturer. For those of you who don't understand the equivalence between different systems, senior lecturer is like an associate professor in the US. So he's a senior lecturer in the journalism program within the media and communications faculty at the Queensland University of Technology. But this is another, thing that I'm trying to do here, that I'm trying to sort of bring people to teach at Geo, who teach in very different cultures, different countries, different types of universities, and different types of media systems. So, so in that sense, I was very glad that we were able, because I was thinking, okay, we definitely need someone who's more focused on, visual journalism. And I thought of how do we find such a person for Geo? And I immediately remembered that, Missouri had a very compelling photo program, and who were our doctoral students who focused on visual journalism. And I realized that, TJ is an academic. He's at Queensland, and reached out to him. And he was very interested in being a part of this, adventure. And also the other thing, TJ is working on some very interesting research projects where he's hoping to incorporate India as a part of his work. And that's where I think, like, when he comes to Geo to teach, he'll actually be able to contribute to the institute in more ways than just teaching. So, TJ, I'll let you, more coherently tell your story.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's such a delight and a pleasure to be here with you all, and to hopefully work with you in the coming months at the Geo Institute. So my name is TJ. I'm originally from the United States. I grew up in Colorado and got my background in journalism, working first in Colorado as a visual journalist, working for local community news outlets in Colorado. And then with time and experience over the years, I was able to eventually produce content for larger regional and national outlets like the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, and the Associated Press. And as a visual journalist, I was always really struck by and interested by, whenever I take my camera out and raise it up to get photos or videos, people always seem to be quite reactive to my camera's presence. They seem to either kind of be quite shy and kind of recede into the background and try to kind of just fade into the periphery, or they tried to kind of be really big and theatrical, play up for the camera. And I saw my role as a journalist trying to document life as it unfolded naturally. There was a little bit of a tension there with people trying to play up for the camera or react differently to the camera compared to trying to capture life as it unfolded naturally. So it was something I was really fascinated by and interested in, and it kind of motivated my initial research interests in visual journalism. I was so taken by the topic that I wrote a book on it. You can see that on the shelf there. I did my master's and PhD, as Harsh mentioned, at the Missouri School of Journalism, looking at the topics of representation in news. I've been an academic now for 6 years, the last 5 of those years being in Australia, here in Brisbane. It's a lovely part of the world if you're able to visit. Love to host you out in Brisbane. And at QUT, I'm leading the News and Media and Research Journalism group we have here, and working with lots of great folks doing research and teaching in the journalism and digital media area with the focus on visual communication. A few of my current funded research studies include AI-generated images in news. I have another study looking at visual news in regional and rural contexts, and a third study looking about how we can use media literacy to combat mis and disinformation. So really exciting areas that are really responding to really interesting social issues that we're facing throughout different countries and contexts. And I'm really excited to hopefully work with you all soon at the GU Institute and to learn about how to produce news in visual form.
Okay, no, I think this is great. And, I think as attendees can already appreciate that we are trying to bring a very, very diverse pool of faculty, not only in terms of where they are teaching, what they are teaching, but also very diverse in terms of the kind of research that they do within the media and communication space. So, I think that will be a huge differentiator. And I would just like to tell all the attendees that this is just 3 of the, 10 or 11 very, very competent faculty members that we've already, already have commitments to teach from, and we'll keep, finding the best people from wherever they are to be a part of this program. So maybe, I know Vikas already elaborated on his course, but maybe what we'll do is that we'll have, Monica and TJ also give just a little more detail about what course will they teach in the program. So, and I think we'll start with you, Monica, because your course will really be a very foundational course in the program in Q1, and TJ, you will be teaching in Q2. So we'll go in that order. And then, if Vikas has something more to say about the Understanding India course, we are happy to do that. And then Harshita, you can, tell me how we are doing on time, because we want to make sure we give people a chance to ask questions.
So my course is Introduction to Reporting and Writing. Honestly, I don't think you can do journalism without learning how to write. There are some very structured practices that journalists tend to follow when they're writing news stories. What has made it even more interesting is the multimedia element that comes into it. From a very natural perspective, I tend to think across different platforms. This course specifically will first introduce you to writing, basic writing for news stories. So you will learn about, in the US, we do Associated Press style. I believe in India, every publication usually has their own style of writing print stories. And so we will take that into account when we decide how to teach you in terms of writing style. But those are very stylistic things in terms of how do you write a title for someone? How do you address somebody? Do you use their last name, or how do you go about identifying your sources and things like that? So we will start with the very basic inverted pyramid style, which is you put the most important information up there, and then you follow through with context, with greater detail. From my experience and my teaching, I've learned that oftentimes students tend to struggle with the details and writing very specifically. Everyone tends to write the more general sort of news stories. So we'll really get down into making sure the message that you're giving out to the audience is clear, succinct, and is accurate. It's factual. So what sources will you include? What kind of perspectives you will include? How you should be trying to get folks from all sides before you publish your story. So we will get into news writing, feature writing. We will get into interviews. All of the different kind of news stories that you see in your newspaper is what we will focus on. We will get into crime reporting a little bit, essentially making sure that after you're done with this course, you can take any of the more advanced courses and your basics are covered, your foundations are covered, and your instructors wouldn't have to tell you how to tell the news story. Well, yes, but more like they wouldn't have to tell you how to write it. You already have those basics down. We will learn how to identify what is news, how to write, how to propose good headlines, because in a lot of newsrooms, you have a copy desk that usually tends to do that. But I think as a reporter, you can make suggestions and make sure that you have as much control over your story, even as it goes through the newsroom and the various editors before it is published. And you can make those kind of suggestions to ensure that your input in that story has been there from the get-go. It is your byline. It is your name with that story. So you want to make sure you're proud of it by the time you're done. I will throw in at least a few lectures related to multimedia, because recognize how many of you get your news stories on WhatsApp, or at least the breaking news, right? The information, the facts that you need. We will focus on that just a little bit and try and understand what is the best way to provide factual information, especially in a world full of disinformation and misinformation, where fake news comes out at you, from every direction. How do you, as a reporter, ensure that you can develop your own following on, on social media or through WhatsApp, and you can then send them the information that is important? I think as a budding reporter, that is also useful information, apart from just simply writing writing news stories, because it from a purely professional perspective, it provides you with cachet. And what I mean by that is, when you go to a news organization or you switch jobs, it is in your benefit to be able to say that, look, I have so many folks who follow my stories on my channels. So we will also get into that a little bit. But by and large, my course is setting your foundation in news writing and reporting. So if you come in saying, I don't even know where to begin, well, you will know where to begin in my class. And by the end of my class, you will also know where to finish.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Monica. TJ, would you like to talk a little about?
With pleasure, yes. Thank you, Harsh. So I have the pleasure of teaching the Reporting and Writing Audio and Video class at the GU Institute. And so with this class, we're trying to hopefully help folks be able to hear and see a little bit differently than they might normally do in their day-to-day lives. So oftentimes with audio, we tend to write for the eye differently than we write for the ear. And so learning the differences of writing for the eye versus the ear is something very important that we'll cover in the class. We'll be very attentive to different types of noise, things like room tone, gathering appropriate audio with room tone, but also nat sound, and how nat sound can be used to create more immersive storytelling environments that kind of draw the audience in and get them more engaged in the story you're telling. We'll have an opportunity to interview a person about a newsworthy topic, and to be able to record that interview, draw audio from the interview, and then try to edit it and condense it down into the most key elements into 60, 90 seconds or so. So good experience of gathering audio, editing audio, and then with the kind of visual side of things, we'll be able to try to hopefully help folks be able to see in a bit of a different way. And so oftentimes, if you look at kind of casual image makers or video makers, they tend to use their cameras from farther back. They tend to make images or videos of groups rather than individuals. They tend to oftentimes hold their cameras from very traditional kind of chest heights. And oftentimes, by thinking about your positionality, your angles, your focal lengths, your distance from the action, that can really elevate your imagery and help you tell a story in a more engaging, impactful way. So with the visual side of things, we'll talk about visual theory, visual literacy, aesthetics, compositional approaches to framing, that kind of thing, to get you upskilled on the visual literacy side of things. We'll work through gear and equipment to get you comfortable using cameras and that kind of thing, if you don't already have that experience. We'll also then talk about editing and working with editing conceptually, with storyboarding and that kind of thing, but also using software to execute the vision that you have in your heads and get that vision down onto the screen. And then kind of production and presenting and getting your work ready for public viewing. So we'll do a lot in our time together, but really exciting work, fusion of audio and video to try to get you thinking and hearing differently than you normally do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, TJ. So Vikas, would you like to add a little more about the Understanding India course?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you already covered a fair bit earlier, but if there's anything that you want our attendees, both live and people who will watch this recording later, to know.
So basically, understanding India should mean that, of course, we have as broad a canvas as possible. So we will introduce students to the making of modern India. You have to know something about the freedom struggle. Even as journalists, you know that there's so much about the freedom struggle that is in news even now every month and every year, right? So introducing you to trends in the freedom struggle, which also was intimately connected to the rise of journalism in India, by the way. And then coming to independence, the making of the Indian Constitution, which is again very important. A journalist must have a working idea of the Indian Constitution, because as journalists, you'll encounter a lot that will be there in the fundamental rights or whatever, and which you may not know about. So in order to do journalism successfully and well, you need to know about it. That apart, looking at the development of political trends in India from, say, the Nehru years and coming up to the present day, looking at social trends in India, looking at specific regional histories also of the present, so to say, contemporary social movements in regional settings. You have you had the rise of, say, the Bahujan Samaj Party in Uttar Pradesh, or you had the rise of the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra. You've got a very distinctive Dravidian, what they call Dravidian model of politics, in Tamil Nadu. So looking at some of those regional trends, also understanding things like, say, caste. In India, it is very difficult to kind of, do journalism or be an informed citizen, so to say, without understanding caste, caste and the constitution, caste and politics, caste and society, and not just as a static entity, but the way it has evolved, the various permutations and combinations that have gone into the making of what we are today. It may also have, classes on, say, gender relations in India, how they have progressed. So at the end of the day, also, of course, the economic trends, the trends of, the way Indian economy has developed since independence at the very least. And in particular, 1991, what we know as LPG, how that changed things. So at the end of the day, the idea would be to provide a larger basket via which a student at the end of the course should have a working idea about India in multiple ways, which would be understanding the government, understanding the state per se, understanding the judiciary, understanding Indian society, understanding specific regions in India that make them very distinctive, understanding how Indian society has changed over time, understanding how social institutions have changed. So all of this would be a kind of, a full module with reading lists, of course, and I'll try to pack it with essential readings. There might be 10 to 15 books, which if you have read at the end of the year, you are likely to become a much better informed journalist.
Okay, thank you so much, Vikas. I think that perspective is very important. And, one thing is that given that we are aiming for a pan-India cohort and also a certain number of international students, I think it will be fascinating for our international students also to discover through a course like this that people from one region of India often know so little about other regions in India, and especially when you talked about, the shaping of sort of the socio-political histories of specific regions. I think that teaching that with some nuance and learning to understand that there is nuance and differences in each region is, I think, very important for even people who think that, hey, because I did a bachelor's in sociology, I understand India very well, or because I did a bachelor's in history, I understand India very well. But I think, and maybe the one other thing I want to emphasize for the audience is that this type of a course in most other journalism programs in India is like a fourth semester elective, by which time, you've already got your job, you are checked out, and most people don't want this course. But we have very carefully thought about it and kept this as a mandatory foundation course, because we really believe that while teaching skills is very, very important, but we also want to provide opportunities for perspective building and for the cohort to have a common ground, to have more rigorous conversations with each other. And that is one objective that this course would, fulfill. So if you want to tell somebody that, what is the one thing that differentiates the Geo program from others, although there are many differentiators, but you can definitely say that, for example, having Understanding India as a full 3-credit 20-session course, which is mandatory for everyone and comes fairly early in the program. So yeah, no, thank you. So should we get to the Q&A now, Harshita?
Yes. I think we are left with last 15 minutes of the session. So we'll go into the Q&A. Also, I saw the Q&A and we are like bombarded with many questions, very pointed questions to the program. So I'm really happy that, people are taking that much interest to ask these questions. We will take up as many as we can and we'll try to clarify as many, concerns that there are. But I would also like to share that very soon we are having a very separate session dedicated to all the applicants who have applied to our program in journalism, where they will get to ask questions directly, and that will be a very specialized session by Harsh and Vikas. So we'll keep that session very limited to all the questions on the program. Today's session was more towards meeting these 3 faculty members and understanding what they are bringing to the program and how they are going to take forward the course. So in the beginning only, I just wanted to sensitize the audience that we'll try to answer as many as possible. But since this session had a different objective, we'll see how much we can cover in the 15 minutes. But you can anyways come into that other session and ask the remaining whatever is left. Yeah. So over to you, Harsh. Yeah.
Okay, so do you just want me to choose the questions from here? So I think
yes.
Question that I see, so I'm just a heads up to attendees, that if I mispronounce your name, then my apologies in advance. So, Kinkini Mazumdar has asked a question that, do you think this course is suitable for fresh graduates? I do have a bit of background in journalism. I think this, we can probably solicit very quick answers from any of the faculty that do they think that the individual courses that they are teaching, would people with no prior journalism background, would they be eligible and would they benefit from this course? And what about people who already have a little bit of grounding? I don't know, Monica, yeah, since you're teaching the first class, you should probably go first.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think this course is exceptionally, especially the one I'm teaching, very, very suitable for fresh graduates, partly because if you don't know how to write a news story, you enter a newsroom, editors don't have the time to teach you how to write news stories. I can give an example of when I was covering the 2004 elections, because I'd only ever done features or news stories. My editor kept saying, but Monica, you're in Punjab and you don't have color in your story. can you, and I was like, what is color? What do you mean by color in the story? Well, guess what? If you take my course, you're not going to have to answer those kind of questions. What's even better is I will tell you what is good color for your story. What are the details you should add? What is relevant? What would be important? How to get your audiences to read the stories you write. And even if you have a little bit of background in journalism, though, let me tell you this, writing is a lifelong learning experience. You are going to begin in my course, but you're never going to stop learning how to write better. The best authors have editors because they're still learning how to write better. The best journalists have editors because they are still learning how to write better. Every single reporter is probably showing their work to other folks and learning how to write better. So to your point, this is a course that's important for you. It's also important for fresh graduates. And in some ways, apart from learning how to write, you will also learn how to learn to continue writing well, if that makes sense.
Jay, would you like to say something about your course being suitable for fresh graduates without journalism experience, as well as for those?
Yes, absolutely. I think oftentimes as students, we get some training in writing and that kind of thing and speaking, but we get less training in visual side of things. So I'm very aware of that oftentimes absence in formal education, and very happy to meet folks where they are. Oftentimes that's at a very foundational baseline level, and I'm very happy to start there and kind of work up as we have time. I think for folks who are more advanced or have more experience, what can really help you is to really spend time investing in your story selection. So for the folks who are brand new, doing something very simple and kind of light and fluffy. For example, what's it like to be a shop owner or a baker down the street, that kind of thing. But for someone with experience and a bit more advanced skills, maybe have a little bit more think about how you can tell a story with more news values, more impact, more community-wide appeal. And that, I think, can let you challenge yourself and do something even a little bit better for a portfolio compared to if you're just starting out.
Perfect. So we got that. Let's go to, so I see that there are a number of questions, that touch on specialization within journalism. So, someone is asking, how useful would the program be for someone who wants a break in business journalism, especially Hindi business journalism? Or someone is asking, I saw something about sports. Somebody said something about, I don't know, that I want to become a freelance journalist. Would this program be useful? So I think first a little bit about specialization. So the faculty who you are meeting today, they are people who are teaching you in the first couple of quarters. So they are talking about things at a more foundational level, the kind of skills and perspectives that you need, no matter what specialization you choose to do. But I would say that I talked about, Geo Institute having a artificial intelligence and data science program and a digital media and marketing communication program. So one specialized, and the other program that I didn't mention, that Geo Institute is also starting a sports management program this year, which will be launched alongside the journalism program. So I would say, for example, someone wants to specialize in sports. I think not only would we have a dedicated elective on sports reporting, but what we envision is that in your third and fourth quarter, there will actually be opportunities to take a course or two from the sports management specialization that could get you more up to speed with that domain. So if you think of sports management, actually sports media is a sub area within sort of this larger field of sports management. So we think that if you want to become someone who specializes in reporting and writing, but wants to do it in the field of sport, we have a very natural opportunity in the program. Because we have a digital media and marketing communications program that is running. So the institute is quite well placed to help somebody who wants to get more into business reporting. there will be an elective or two from that other program that you could take on the Indian business environment, on, some aspect of business administration that could basically help you. And more importantly, the presence of these additional programs means that we'll not only get, very traditional journalists as visitors to the institute, we'll have visitors as well as faculty who are in these different domains of, sports, different business domains. So your ability to create a much wider network that will help you tell an organization with confidence that I am very well trained in journalism, but I am also, confident of being a business reporter. I am very confident of being a sports reporter because Jio has given me an opportunity to get more perspective, even informally, in those domains. So, that's how we are shaping. And I talked about artificial intelligence and data science because although one specialization that students have not asked, but we'll also focus on data journalism as a specialization within the program. So, there will be a required data journalism course for everybody in the second quarter. And then there will be a opportunity to do an advanced selective in data journalism. This is a very niche specialization in India, but as newsrooms are all becoming, digital first newsrooms, as journalists, you have to produce your own infographics. You have to visualize, the informational elements of your story yourself. You won't necessarily have others to do it for you. And that's where we think that our program will give you an edge. So, yes, if you are thinking of a particular specialization, yes, and, somebody asked a question about, will I get practical training on how to present news, how to, act on camera? Well, I think if we have faculty like TJ, yes, you will get very good training on how to work with audio and video. But the institute has invested in a lot of very good studio infrastructure. So you will get good practical training on how to really, be in front of the camera and how to also make your own media for, augmenting your, written stories. And the other thing is that we also have kept a course on news editing, and we have an editing studio on campus. So we recognize that editing is a very integral part of, journalism. And unlike big traditional newspapers, some of the smaller digital first, social first, mobile first news organizations, you will not have the luxury of having dedicated editors who will be able to, do copy editing for you. So we want to also teach editing. And so, so you will learn all the skills very well and you will be able to specialize. Is there any other question that I haven't? Okay, somebody says that, I am an engineer and I have completed a PG in finance. Should I still come to this program? Yes, you are very much eligible. And in fact, someone like you could easily get into business journalism, learning data journalism from us, So your background in finance, our training in data journalism, I think that is what business reporting in India right now is looking for. People who can do data journalism and who understand business and finance. Is there any other question, Harshita, that I haven't addressed, which pertains to our curriculum delivery? Because that's what we are focusing on.
Yeah.
I mean, we can take the career options and the pay packages questions in the dedicated session that we have for applicants.
Yeah. No, I think
somebody is asking about Hindi journalism. I don't know, Vikas, do you want to tackle that? Because how will we train somebody who wants to do journalism in a different language?
Look, so far as the interest in Hindi journalism is concerned, first thing that I want you people to know about the latest trends in the industry is that dividing line between English and Indian language journalism no longer stands. There was a time, those of you who may remember that time, we all distinctively remember it, where we knew things like, Barkha Dutt being an English journalist and XYZ being a Hindi journalist, like Rajat Sharma. Today, if I ask you a simple question, many of the journalists whom you see, is Rajdeep Sardesai an English or a Hindi journalist? And he goes, he's on India Today TV, he speaks Hindi. He's on Neta Nagri of the Lallan Top, where he speaks Hindi. So the point is, Arnab Goswami speaks in Hindi many a time. So the thing is, newsrooms are increasingly looking for bilingual people. If you are bilingual, for instance, I am very bilingual. My Hindi is quite good. So the thing is, if you are bilingual, you'll benefit a lot, because the fact is that if you are doing your journalism in India, for instance, you may have to talk to a policeman, a constable, you may have to talk to a farmer. So the more, and of course, you may have to talk to the Cabinet Secretary of India. So the point is that ideally, if you are comfortable with more than one language, it is very good. And certainly, I think we would love to encourage that, because that is the trend of the university, of the industry, and one has to adapt to the trends.
And depending on who is teaching and the course, I'm sure some of our faculty members will be open to, let's say, students doing their assignments that are more bilingual, provided the faculty is able to, facilitate that. And which is why the other thing is that while we have many great professors from Western universities coming to teach us things that are not taught or in ways that are not common in other programs in India, we also have some courses by practicing journalists in India. So, so if you wanted to do your capstone project where there is an element of reporting in Hindi, I think we will be able to facilitate that. Monica, would you want to?
Well, I just want to say, so when I worked for the BBC World Service Radio, it was an expectation that all of us, with the help of producers, would report in English and in Hindi. My Hindi is pretty good as well, and I can read and write Hindi, which means that depending on the cohort I get for the classes, if there is an expectation or a desire for you to be able to translate what you've reported in English into Hindi and practice journalistic writing, then those structures can be organized and can be taught to students. So if you're thinking, oh, I want to get into Hindi journalism, but the fundamental reporting and writing course will be taught in English, yes, I think in English, but I can also think in Hindi. I talk to my mom in Hindi. My mother's from New Delhi. And so my Hindi is not, sorry for the Bombay folks, but it's not Bombay Hindi. I was trained in North Indian Hindi. So, so I think we are going to be okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that. It will be okay. And it's like not very complex. If I talk to you about contemporary India, it just becomes Samkaleen Bharat. No problem there.
So I think between Vikas and I, we have it covered. सब ठीक होगा, कोई डरने की बात नहीं है. आप कोर्स में आइए, हम आपको बहुत अच्छी तरह सिखाएंगे कि आप हिंदी में कैसे लिख सकते हैं.
Sorry, TJ, we are being a bit exclusionary for you here, but maybe the students will collectively teach you a little bit of Hindi by the time you are ready to go back.
I love that. That'd be great.
Okay, so is there any? So I think for those of you who are asking about, salary and placement questions, I would encourage you to watch out for the next session, and we'll, more, because that will be like a session for applicants about their work. So I think we'll take those questions there. I'm just trying to see if there is any other question that is more related to how we are teaching and what we are teaching. So yeah, somebody is asking about, okay, practical training for TV journalism, camera. So there, the way we are saying is that we haven't designed the program as TV, radio, newspaper. The fundamental organizing principles of the skills part of the program is text and audio video. So that's kind of how we have done. So, we are not specifically going to have like a full course on TV, but I think when we are teaching for video, we will pay enough, attention to the fact that what you need to do for TV when you are making video confirms to very different ethos than if you are recording, your own YouTube video, giving an opinion about something and an analysis for 10 minutes versus, a TV story that needs to be 60 seconds or 90 seconds. So we will definitely train you, but we have deliberately not organized the program because we don't want to narrow you as a prospective product for the industry as saying that, oh, this person is trained in TV. So if I am going to run a social media first organization where I want this person to host their own show, but also do shorter stories, also do a podcast from time to time, you want to be, flexible and adaptive. So that's how we've designed. And if you think of a lot of digital news outlets, digital first outlets, people do text and audio visual at the same time, and the same people do it. So anything else, Harshita, that I'm missing? Okay, it seems that Pulkit, who had a lot of questions, is satisfied with our answers. So that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, anybody else, if you have feedback for how we did, please feel free to, type in. Okay, so I think that's a question more for the institute, that can they apply to 2 programs? I wouldn't know, but I would say
they can, they surely can. It would require a different application form. So Pulkit, I would request you to get in touch with our admissions team. You can call the number. There's a helpline number on the website of Geo Institute. You can call the number and ask them if there is any doubt. But it is possible to apply for multiple programs. So yeah.
I see. And so I see Harshita has also shared the link to that dedicated section that we have for applicant questions. And do we need to tell them the precise date and time of that session? Is it in 2 days?
Yeah, so the session is happening on 21st April. And so we are calling it an AMA session, Ask Me Anything. And it will be like, it will have Harsh and Vikas in that session. So you can ask anything with regards to the program, whatever doubts that you may have, you can ask. We'll try to keep it in a format where, you can unmute yourself and directly ask. So we'll keep it very, very informal and very free flowing. But the only thing in the session we are going to share,
Sorry, we lost you. Wait, am I the only one who lost Harshita?
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was saying that the session is, though I put the link here so that all of you can also register from this link in the chat. But this is not an open session in general, so we'll not be posting it on our social media and all. But this will be emailed to all the potential applicants who are, who have applied on our admissions platform, and they will get a chance to ask anything to both Harsh and Vikas, anything with regards to the program, anything on the institute, and whatever you would like to ask. So do use that session for whichever doubts you have. It's in 2 days. It's like just in 2 days, but I think it's worth giving a shot. If you have any questions ever on the program, on the institute, do register for it. The link is on the chat you must have received the link on the chat just now. So I think we are already close to the end of the session. We shall close the session for now. Thank you very much, Harsh, TJ, Monica, Vikas, for joining us for the session today. I'm sure the students are very happy. The audience members are very happy with the session, and especially getting all their questions answered, and in such a jolly and insightful way. So I'm sure they enjoyed the session. And before I close the session, I would just share with the audience members that this program, the postgraduate program in journalism, our admissions cycle is still open. So if you are interested in the program, or you think anyone in your network is interested in the program, do share it with them. If you would like to know more about the program, you can visit our website, www.geoinstitute.edu.in. Therein you can find a helpline number. If you want to call any of our counselors, you can talk with them, schedule a call and talk with them about the program. The eligibility criteria for our program is you need to have an undergraduate degree in any discipline with a minimum of 50%. You need to either appear for our entrance test, which is the Geo Institute entrance test, or if you already have a valid GRE or GMAT score, you can share that in the application form, and that will be done. We do give a certain preference to people who have certain experience. By experience, we mean any experience which is relevant. So even if you were, let's say, working along with your college, your undergraduate college, that experience would also get counted. So do ensure when you are filling the application form, write every relevant experience that you feel would add a value to your application. So here was something on the eligibility criteria. And with that, I would like to close today's session. Thank you everyone for joining in, and have a very nice evening ahead, and a morning to you, Monica. Great day ahead.
And it's so late for you, TJ. So thank you so much, for making time, and so early for you, Monica.
Well, that's what it is. That's what a global program is all about.
Well said.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you, and yeah. Bye.